My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m., the blue glow cutting through our bedroom darkness like a lighthouse beacon warning ships away from rocky shores. Anna's text message appeared on the screen. Late dinner with clients. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at those words, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. 22 years of marriage, and she still thought I was stupid enough to believe her lies. The funny thing, 3 months ago, I might have been. Sure, Anna, I whispered to the empty room. Enjoy the lobster. Tell Rick to check his stock portfolio in the morning. My finger moved across the screen with surgical precision, executing the first move in what would become the most satisfying game of chess I'd ever played. Rick Morrison, my wife's so-called business partner, was about to learn that underestimating a blue-collar IT consultant could be a very expensive mistake. The trade executed at exactly midnight. 20,000 shares of Technova stock sold short at market price. Rick's brokerage account, secured by the brilliant password Rick M 2023, written on a sticky note I'd photographed during their last business meeting at our house, would show a substantial loss by morning. Nothing illegal, nothing traceable to me, just a man making some very poor investment choices. My phone rang 30 seconds later. David! Anna's voice cracked through the speaker, panic threading every syllable. Something terrible happened. Rick's having some kind of crisis with his investments. I need to stay and help him figure this out. In the background, I could hear Rick's voice, high and strained. This is impossible. I never authorized this trade. Someone hacked my account. I smiled in the darkness. That's terrible, honey. These things happen in volatile markets. Maybe Rick should be more careful with his passwords. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire ready to snap. What did you just say? Anna's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I said market volatility is unpredictable. Rick should probably call his broker first thing in the morning. Get some professional advice. David, Anna. I let her name hang in the air for a moment. Come home when you're ready. We need to talk. I ended the call and rolled over, pulling the covers up to my chin. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical for our corner of Maine in October. I stood at the kitchen window, watching our neighbor Mrs. Patterson peek through her blinds at me. The woman had made neighborhood gossip into an art form, and I had no doubt she'd noticed Anna's car missing from our driveway again. Our daughter Emma clattered down the stairs, her backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds already in place. At 19, she'd perfected the art of selective hearing, especially when it came to her parents' increasingly tense conversations. Morning, sweetheart, I said, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, a Father's Day gift from 10 years ago that read World's Greatest Dad in fading letters. Emma grunted something that might have been a greeting and grabbed an apple from the counter. She paused at the door, pulling out one earbud. Mom didn't come home again last night. It wasn't a question. Emma had inherited Anna's sharp observation skills along with her green eyes and stubborn streak. She had a work emergency, I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. Emma's laugh held no humor. Right, work emergency. Is that what we're calling it now? She left before I could respond, the front door closing with a definitive click that seemed to echo through our suddenly too quiet house. I finished my coffee and headed to my home office, a converted spare bedroom where I'd built my IT consulting business from nothing into something that kept us comfortable. Anna had always been embarrassed by my blue-collar roots, the way I'd clawed my way up from fixing computers in a strip mall to managing network security for half the businesses in town. My phone buzzed with a text from Big Mike. Jim, 1 hour, you look like hell. Michael Torino had owned Torino's boxing gym for 30 years, ever since his own fighting career ended with a broken orbital bone and a wife who threatened to leave if he stepped into another ring. He'd become something between a mentor and a father figure to me over the past 5 years. Ever since I'd started working out there to deal with the stress of Anna's growing ambition and our crumbling marriage. The gym occupied the bottom floor of a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and industrial lighting that cast harsh shadows across the heavy bags and speed bags. The smell of sweat and leather and determination hung in the air like incense in a church. Big Mike looked up from wrapping his hands as I walked in. At 62, he still moved like a fighter, all controlled power and economy of motion. His gray hair was cropped close to his skull, and his dark eyes missed nothing. You did something, he said without preamble. I started wrapping my own hands, taking my time with the ritual. I might have made a small adjustment to my wife's boyfriend's financial portfolio. How small? About $40,000 small. Mike whistled low. You playing with fire, David. That woman's got claws. So do I. I flexed my wrapped hands. I'm just tired of keeping them sheathed. We worked the heavy bags for an hour, the rhythmic pounding helping to clear my head and focus my thoughts. Mike had taught me that boxing wasn't about anger. It was about control, timing, and knowing when to strike. What's your end game here? Mike asked as we cooled down. Anna thinks she's smarter than me. Rick thinks his money and fancy clothes make him untouchable. They're both about to learn otherwise. And your daughter? That stopped me cold. Emma was the one innocent party in this whole mess, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt her. She's smart enough to see what's really happening, I said finally. Maybe it's time she learned that actions have consequences. My phone buzzed with another text from Anna. We need to talk. Meet me at the Lobster Trap at 7 p.m. The Lobster Trap. Of course she'd choose our old anniversary restaurant, the place where we'd celebrated every milestone in our marriage. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I showed Mike the message. She's trying to control the battlefield, he said. Public place, emotional significance, classic manipulation. Good thing I've got a few tricks of my own. That afternoon, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my old friend Detective Ray Sullivan, who owed me a favor from when I'd helped recover his daughter's stolen laptop. The second was to Anna's boss, Jennifer Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Public Relations. The third was to Rick's biggest investor, a man named Thomas Brennan, who'd put $2 million into Rick's latest venture. By 6 p.m., I'd planted enough seeds to ensure that Anna and Rick's evening would be anything but romantic. The Lobster Trap sat on the waterfront, all weathered cedar shingles and nautical kitsch. Through the windows, I could see Anna already seated at what used to be our table, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her navy suit immaculate. Rick sat across from her, his back to the window, gesticulating wildly as he spoke. I parked across the street and pulled out my phone. The message I sent to Thomas Brennan was simple. Rick Morrison may be using investor funds for personal expenses. Thought you should know. A concerned friend. I watched through the restaurant window as Rick's phone lit up. His face went pale as he read the message, then flushed red as his phone began ringing. Anna looked confused as Rick answered, his voice rising enough that other diners began to turn and stare. I couldn't hear the words, but his body language told the story. Defensive postures, wild gestures, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. Rick stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. He threw his napkin down on the table and stormed toward the exit, Anna hurrying after him. I waited until they reached Rick's Tesla in the parking lot before making my move. The knife slid through the sidewall of his rear tire, with barely a whisper. The second tire took even less effort. I left the folded piece of paper under his windshield wiper and retreated to my car, just as Rick discovered his predicament. His roar of frustration carried across the parking lot. Anna stood beside him, her perfect composure finally cracking as she read the note I'd left. Business is all about timing. Yours just ran out. Anna didn't come home that night either, or the next. On the third morning, Emma found me in the kitchen staring at a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. Dad, what's really going on? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had she grown up? When had those knowing eyes replaced the trusting gaze of the little girl who used to believe I could fix anything? Your mother is having an affair, I said simply, with Rick Morrison. Anna nodded slowly. I figured. She's been different for months, secretive, always on her phone. I'm sorry you had to see this. Are you getting divorced? The question hung between us like a loaded weapon. I'd been asking myself the same thing for weeks, but hearing it from Emma made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. I don't know yet, I admitted. But things are going to get complicated. Emma poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from me. What do you need me to do? Nothing. This is between your mother and me. Dad. Emma's voice carried a weight that reminded me painfully of Anna. I'm 19, not 9. And I've been watching this train wreck for months. If you're going to fight back, you're going to need allies. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my office number, but when I answered, it was Jennifer Hartwell's voice on the line. David, this is Jennifer Hartwell from Anna's company. I'm afraid there's been a problem with your contract renewal. My stomach dropped. Hartwell PR had been one of my biggest clients for 3 years, providing nearly 30% of my annual income. What kind of problem, Jennifer? We've received some concerning information about your business practices. Nothing concrete, you understand. But in today's climate, we can't afford to take risks with our vendor relationships. I closed my eyes, seeing Anna's hand in this immediately. What kind of information? I'd rather not go into specifics over the phone. I'm sure you understand. Of course. When would you like to discuss this in person? I'm afraid that won't be necessary. We've decided to terminate our contract effective immediately. You'll receive formal notification by email within the hour. The line went silent. I stared at my phone, feeling the first cold touch of real fear. Anna wasn't just playing games anymore. She was trying to destroy my livelihood. Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. What was that about? Your mother just cost me my biggest client. How? And I explained about Jennifer's call, watching Emma's expression grow darker with each detail. That's not fair, Emma said finally. She can't just ruin your business because you found out about her affair. She can if I let her. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Back off, or this is just the beginning. You know who this is. I showed the message to Emma, whose eyes flashed with anger. She's threatening you? Looks like it. Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor. I need to go to class, but Dad, don't back down. Mom's been getting away with this crap for too long. After Emma left, I sat in the quiet kitchen and planned my next move. Anna wanted to play hardball? Fine. But she'd forgotten that I'd been in the technology business for 20 years, and I knew where a lot of bodies were buried. It took me 40 minutes to find what I was looking for in Anna's old laptop, the one she'd retired 6 months ago, without properly wiping the hard drive. Her email archives were a treasure trove of information, including detailed correspondence about her promotion campaign and the methods she'd used to undermine her competitors. More interesting were the financial records I found buried in a subfolder marked Personal. Anna had been skimming money from her expense account for months, using company funds to pay for her wardrobe upgrades and expensive dinners. Nothing huge, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, but enough to raise serious questions about her ethics. I copied everything to an encrypted drive and headed to the gym. Big Mike took one look at my face and shook his head. She escalated. Cost me the Hartwell contract. Probably going to cost me others if I don't move fast. What's your play? I told him about the financial records and Emma's offer to help. Mike listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious as I talked. You sure about involving your daughter in this? She involved herself. Besides, Anna dragged her into this mess the moment she decided to cheat. And Rick? What's his next move? As if summoned by the mention of his name, my phone rang. Rick's name appeared on the caller ID. David! Rick's voice was tight with controlled anger. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at Murphy's pub in an hour. I don't think that's a good idea, Rick. It wasn't a request. The line went silent. I looked at Mike, who'd heard enough of the conversation to understand the situation. He's trying to intimidate you, Mike said. Wants to meet on his turf, make you feel small. Murphy's pub isn't his turf. It's neutral ground. Nothing's neutral when you're dealing with a man who's lost 40 grand and his pride in the same week. I considered that. Come with me. Mike grinned, the expression transforming his weathered face. Wouldn't miss it. Murphy's pub occupied a corner building downtown, all dark wood and dim lighting that made everyone look like they were plotting something. Rick sat at a corner booth, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. He looked up as Mike and I approached, his eyes narrowing when he saw my companion. I said come alone. You said come. I came. I slid into the booth across from him while Mike took a seat at the bar within easy earshot. What do you want, Rick? I want you to stop whatever game you're playing and act like an adult. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet pub. That's rich, coming from a man who's been screwing my wife for 6 months. Rick's face flushed red. Anna and I have a business relationship. Save it. I leaned forward, keeping my voice low and steady. I know about the hotel receipts. I know about the joint credit card you opened together. I know about the apartment you're renting for your little love nest. Rick's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to end this affair. You're going to transfer Anna back to her old position. And you're going to make sure my business contracts are restored. Or what? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of his investment portfolio. Or I release the information I have about your creative accounting practices. Did you know that using investor funds to pay for personal expenses is considered fraud? Thomas Brennan is very interested in where his money has been going. Rick's face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? I stood up, leaving a 20 on the table for my untouched beer. You've got 24 hours to decide. After that, things get much more complicated. I walked away without looking back, Mike falling into step beside me. Think he'll fold? Mike asked once we were outside. No. Rick's too arrogant to back down. He'll try to call my bluff. And then Anna's about to learn that her boyfriend isn't as smart as she thinks he is. That evening, I was working in my home office when Emma knocked on the door. Dad, there's something you need to see. She handed me her phone, showing Anna's Instagram account. The latest post showed Anna and Rick at some charity function, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Sometimes the best partnerships extend beyond business. #grateful, #new beginnings." She posted this an hour ago, Emma said quietly. All her friends are commenting. Everyone knows, Dad. I stared at the photo, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Anna wasn't just cheating, she was flaunting it, making me look like a fool to everyone we knew. Dad? Emma's voice seemed to come from very far away. What are you going to do? I handed her phone back and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I'm going to teach your mother and her boyfriend a lesson about consequences. The Riverside Country Club's annual charity auction was the social event of the season, where the city's elite gathered to see and be seen while writing tax-deductible checks for worthy causes. Anna had been looking forward to it for months, planning her outfit, arranging for professional photos, the whole performance. She'd forgotten to uninvite me. I stood in the back of the elegantly decorated ballroom, nursing a glass of wine, and watching Anna work the room like the consummate professional she was. Rick hovered nearby, playing the role of devoted business partner to perfection. They'd coordinated their outfits, Anna in midnight blue silk, Rick in a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. They looked perfect together. Successful, untouchable. Emma appeared at my elbow, elegant in a black cocktail dress I didn't remember buying for her. You clean up nice, kid. Thanks. Mom looks surprised to see us here. I followed Emma's gaze to where Anna stood frozen near the silent auction tables, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Rick had noticed us too, his jaw tightening as he whispered something in Anna's ear. Showtime, I murmured. I made my way through the crowd, smiling and nodding at familiar faces, playing the role of supportive husband attending a charity function. Several people stopped to chat, asking about Anna's recent promotion and Rick's latest business ventures. I answered with just the right mixture of pride and concern, planting tiny seeds of doubt with surgical precision. Oh yes, Anna's been working so hard lately. Sometimes I worry she's taking on too much responsibility. Rick's been such a good friend through all of this, though I do hope he's being careful with his investments. The market's been so volatile lately. By the time I reached Anna, half the room was buzzing with barely audible conversations about my wife's dedication and her business partner's financial acumen. David! Anna's smile could have cut glass. What a surprise. Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart. You know how much I love supporting worthy causes. I kissed her cheek, noting how she stiffened at the contact. Rick, good to see you again. How's the portfolio treating you? Rick's face flushed. Fine. Everything's fine. Glad to hear it. Anna, you look beautiful tonight. That dress is stunning. Thank you. Anna's voice was carefully controlled, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She'd expected anger, confrontation, drama. Polite small talk was throwing her off balance. The evening's master of ceremonies called for attention, announcing the start of the live auction. I excused myself and found a seat near the back, Emma sliding in beside me. Phase 1 complete? She whispered. Phase 1 complete. The auction proceeded smoothly through the usual items: vacation packages, artwork, dinner parties with local celebrities. Then the auctioneer announced a special last-minute addition. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a unique opportunity tonight. Local IT consultant David Harrison has generously donated a comprehensive digital security audit for any business, valued at $15,000. I felt Anna's eyes boring into me from across the room. She knew I hadn't donated anything to the auction. Do I hear an opening bid of $1,000? Several hands went up. The bidding climbed quickly. $3,000, $5,000, $8,000. I watched Rick's face as the amount climbed higher. Saw the moment when greed overcame caution. 10,000. Rick's voice carried across the room. We have 10,000 from Mr. Morrison. Do I hear 11? 15,000. Thomas Brennan's voice boomed from the front row. Rick's face went pale. He couldn't afford to bid against Brennan, not after his recent losses. But backing down now would look weak in front of Anna and their social circle. 16,000, Rick said weakly. 20,000, Brennan countered immediately. The room fell silent. Rick looked like he might be sick. Going once, going twice. Sold to Mr. Brennan for $20,000. Huh, the applause was thunderous. I stood and bowed slightly, acknowledging the recognition while Rick slumped in his chair. After the auction, I made my way to the bar where Rick stood alone, staring into a glass of whiskey. Congratulations on the auction, he said without looking at me. Clever move. I don't know what you mean. The security audit. You knew Brennan would bid on it. Knew he'd drive the price up just to spite me. I ordered a scotch and considered my response. Thomas Brennan is a businessman. He understands the value of good security, especially after recent events have made him question the integrity of his investments. Rick's knuckles went white around his glass. What did you tell him? Nothing he couldn't figure out for himself. Amazing how quickly investors lose confidence when they start asking the right questions. You're destroying my business. Your business destroyed itself the moment you decided to mix personal relationships with professional obligations. Rick turned to face me, his eyes bright with anger and desperation. Anna loves me. She's going to leave you. Maybe she will. But she's not going to leave me for a man who can't manage his own finances. I finished my drink and set the glass on the bar. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Rick. I have a feeling it's going to be memorable. I found Anna near the coat check, her perfect composure finally showing cracks. What are you doing, David? Supporting charity, networking, the usual things people do at these events. Don't play games with me. I helped her into her coat, the gesture automatic after 22 years of marriage. I'm not playing anything, Anna. I'm just tired of being the only one in our marriage who follows the rules. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the expense account irregularities. I know about the apartment. I know about the credit card. Haramli Edavalam says to Reddit card. David, I also know about the promotion you got by sabotaging Rebecca Martinez. Did you really think no one would notice the timing? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted a different life, so you decided to take it. Consequences be damned. Emma appeared beside us, her timing perfect as always. Ready to go, Dad? More than ready. I kissed Anna's cheek one more time, tasting the salt of tears she was trying not to shed. Give Rick my regards, I said softly. Tell him I'll be in touch about that security audit. The drive home was quiet, Emma staring out the window at the city lights sliding past. How bad is this going to get? She asked finally. Depends on how smart your mother is, and how desperate Rick gets. And if they're not smart. I pulled into our driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house where Anna and I had built our life together. 22 years of memories, hopes, dreams, and compromises. All of it reduced to a battlefield where the only victory was making sure your opponent lost more than you did. Then things are going to get very interesting very quickly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you're clever. You have no idea what you've started. Delabri hemerium mind, ending in tordium. I jud this matters, nu korching tortov. And now they get to live with the consequences. But as we walked toward the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real war was just beginning. Anna came home the next morning looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and her designer dress wrinkled beyond repair. She found me in the kitchen, reading the newspaper and drinking coffee like it was any other Saturday morning. We need to talk, she said. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Coffee's fresh. Anna ignored the offer and sat across from me, her hands shaking slightly as she placed them on the table. David, this has gone far enough. I looked up from the sports section. What has? You know what? The stock trades, the auction, whatever you said to Thomas Brennan. Rick is falling apart. That's unfortunate. Market volatility can be stressful. Stop pretending you don't know what you're doing. I folded the newspaper carefully and set it aside. What I'm doing, Anna, is protecting my family and my business from people who seem determined to destroy both. Rick isn't trying to destroy anything. Rick is using investor funds to maintain a lifestyle he can't afford while conducting an affair with a married woman. If that's not destructive behavior, I don't know what is. Anna's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the young woman I'd married all those years ago, vulnerable and uncertain. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. But it did happen. And now we all have to deal with the consequences. What do you want from me? The question hung in the air between us. What did I want? An apology? A promise to end the affair? A chance to rebuild our marriage? I want you to choose, I said finally. Rick or your family. Your affair or your marriage. You can't have both. And if I choose Rick, then you get Rick. All of Rick, including his financial problems, his legal troubles, and his reputation as a man who can't be trusted with other people's money. Anna stared at me, and I could see her mind working, calculating the costs and benefits like the strategic thinker she'd always been. You've destroyed him, she said quietly. Rick destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone could see it. Anna stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Anna? I waited until she looked at me. While you're thinking, remember that actions have consequences, and some consequences can't be undone. She left without another word, and I heard her car start in the driveway a few minutes later. Emma wandered into the kitchen an hour later, still in her pajamas, her hair sticking up at odd angles. Mom's gone again? She's thinking. About what? Whether she wants to be married to me or in a relationship with a man whose business is collapsing. Emma poured herself coffee and sat in Anna's abandoned chair. What do you think she'll choose? Honestly, I think she'll try to find a third option. Your mother's always been good at finding ways to get what she wants without paying the full price. And if she does, then she'll learn that some games have rules even she can't bend. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. Detective Ray Sullivan's name appeared on the caller ID. Ray, what's up? David, I need to ask you a few questions. Can you come down to the station? My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? The kind better discussed in person. How soon can you be here? 30 minutes. I ended the call and looked at Emma, who'd heard enough to understand the situation. They think you did something illegal, she said. Probably. Rick's desperate enough to try anything at this point. Do you need a lawyer? Not yet. Let's see what Ray has to say first. The police station occupied a converted bank building downtown, all institutional beige paint and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look guilty of something. Ray met me in the lobby, his expression carefully neutral. Thanks for coming in, David. Not like I had a choice. Ray led me to a small conference room and closed the door. We'd known each other for 15 years, ever since his daughter had been in Emma's elementary school class. But today he was all business. I'm going to record this conversation, he said, setting a digital recorder on the table. For everyone's protection. Am I under arrest? No, but I need to ask you about some allegations that have been made. What kind of allegations? Ray consulted a file folder. Richard Morrison claims you've been harassing him, stalking him, vandalizing his property. He wants to file a restraining order. I laughed, the sound harsh in the small room. Rick's been busy. He says you slashed his tires at the lobster trap last week. Did he see me slash his tires? He says he found a threatening note on his windshield. A note isn't evidence of tire slashing, Ray. Could have been anyone with a grudge against Rick. And apparently, he's got a lot of people upset with him lately. Ray leaned back in his chair. David, I've known you for a long time. You're not the type to play games like this. What type am I, Ray? The type who gets angry and does something direct about it. Not the type to sneak around in parking lots. Maybe people change. Maybe. But I don't think you're that stupid. We stared at each other across the table. Ray was fishing, hoping I'd say something incriminating. But 20 years in business had taught me when to talk and when to listen. Are you charging me with anything? I asked finally. Not at this time. But David, if you're doing what Rick thinks you're doing, you need to stop. This kind of thing has a way of escalating until someone gets hurt. I'll keep that in mind. Ray turned off the recorder. Off the record, Rick Morrison is a piece of work, but he's got friends with money and influence. Be careful. Thanks for the warning. I left the station feeling like I'd dodged a bullet, but knowing that Rick wasn't finished. If anything, involving the police meant he was getting more desperate. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Mom's back. She brought Rick with her. I stared at the message, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Anna was making her choice, and she was doing it in the most provocative way possible. I drove home slowly, using the time to think through my options. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Rick's Tesla sat in my driveway like a declaration of war. Through the living room window, I could see him and Anna sitting on my couch, having what looked like an intense conversation. Emma was nowhere in sight, probably hiding upstairs. I walked through my front door like I owned the place, which, technically, I still did. "Rick," I said pleasantly. "What a surprise." Rick stood up, trying to look confident despite the fact that he was trespassing in another man's home. "David, Anna and I need to talk to you." "In my house? How thoughtful." Anna remained seated, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl waiting to be disciplined. "David, please. We're trying to handle this like adults." "Adults don't conduct affairs, Anna. Adults don't embezzle from their employers. Adults don't make threats through the police." Rick's face flushed. "I didn't threaten anyone. You filed a false police report. That's a crime, Rick. But then, you've been committing crimes for months, so I guess one more doesn't matter." "That's enough," Anna said, standing up. "We came here to try to work something out." "What kind of something?" Anna and Rick exchanged glances. I could practically see the wheels turning in their heads. "We want to buy you out," Anna said finally. "Your share of the house, the investments, everything. You can start fresh somewhere else." I stared at them, amazed by their audacity. "You want to buy me out of my own life?" "We're trying to be fair," Rick said. "Fair?" I laughed. "Rick, you're broke. Your business is collapsing. Your investors are fleeing. And you're facing potential fraud charges. What exactly are you planning to buy me out with?" Rick's face went pale. "My business is fine. Your business is done. Thomas Brennan pulled his investment this morning. The other investors will follow by Monday. You'll be lucky if you're not facing criminal charges by